Hi everyone, here we're going to start session 11. So you just listened to chapters 12 and 13 from Number the Stars. So here we go. It says, have you ever been reading along and suddenly realize, I can't really picture this? So maybe there's something in Number the Stars, or maybe the book that you're reading, a historical nonfiction book that you're reading, that may just not make sense to you. I can't picture it because can't imagine what it was like back then or the image that they're trying to portray. You can't be able to picture it. So you don't have to wonder what things probably look like. We're lucky to live in a world where we can look things up. So if you ever wanted to know what the Dust Bowl looked like, you can just Google it. There have been several times students in my class that you've asked me a question, I'm like, hold on, and we go to Google and we just punch it in and figure out what they're talking about. And so then that image is now easier to place and understand what is happening in the book that they were reading because now they have an image. So we were really lucky to have Google. It says, readers today, we are going to learn that readers of historical fiction often study images, photographs, and illustrations from the time period which we're synthesizing them into relevant parts of their novels to understand the time period a little better. So basically what they're saying is that we're going to take from our historical fiction books, whatever book that you're reading, and we're going to look at images or photographs or maybe even drawings from that time period. And remember the word synthesizing. You're going to combine that picture with the text and then bring them together so you better understand what is happening in your novel or in your book about that time period. We often put Postits in our books filled with our ideas, but we can also put other stuff in there to help us get our books more. We could find pictures and maps and newspaper articles, etc. So you'll notice that I keep this map over here so that you guys have a sense of where Denmark is and where Sweden is, where there's Sweden right there, Denmark and Sweden, kind of a better understanding of where this is taking place in the world. So let's take a peek at this picture. It says, let's think between this photograph and the Number the Stars to help us understand the book more deeply. What part of the novel does this go with? So think about the image there. Look at that image. It is of a man on a horse, and he's driving or riding through the streets of this city, it looks like, because of the buildings in the background. Do you remember a time in our book, Number the Stars, that someone did this? Think about it. If you're thinking that it was when Anne-Marie was telling Kirsty about the king, you would be correct. Remember the part in the book? It said King Christian was a real human being, a man with a serious, kind face. Each morning he had come from a palace on his horse Jubilee and ridden along the streets of Copenhagen, greeting his people. Okay? So that part, remember Anne-Marie was talking to Kirsty about this. So when you picture the king, before you saw this picture, what did you see? What did you picture the king to be? I pictured him that he had a crown on and maybe a big cape, kind of like a superhero, like he was a big deal. This photograph was actually taken in 1940. Okay. I want you to look at the details of this picture. And how do you think the people in the background look? And what are they doing? So look around, see what do you see? Let's look at the details. Okay. Think about this. All these people are surrounding this man on a horse that what now we know to be King Christian on his horse Jubilee. There's a girl riding a bike right there in the foreground. Okay. There's really no guards around him, which is kind of surprising. Think about this. Do you think one of our presidents would ever do this, especially these days, in a city or in a place that is surrounded by enemies? Okay. So can you picture Yeah, can you picture a president, especially when it is surrounded by enemies? Think about these people. These are just your ordinary people. And it almost looks like it's a parade. If you think about this, they're all surrounding this king. You think that these people admire him? I would think so, right? They're smiling. They're happy to be near him. Think about how this picture may have changed your perspective of how you pictured the king. Right? I didn't even picture people around him, to be honest with you, when she was reading that. And all these happy, happy people. Think about how this image now may have changed how you see what had taken place in the book. I know it did for me. So let's talk about this. Synthesizing, so combining nonfiction, so the images and text, and putting nonfiction into stories. So think about the nonfiction piece, that's the picture, and the text from the historical fiction book that you're reading. And when you put those together, it helps you understand a little bit more. So you can ask yourself, what part of the novel do outside sources fit with? What part of the novel raises questions? You can study it. Study the big parts and then the details. And does this fit with what I know or add to it? So let's go back to that picture. I just want to go back to it. Did this add to what you know or knew of the time? Like honestly, look at the cobblestone underneath their the road that they're driving on. I wouldn't have pictured that because what I know is a street is made of tar or asphalt. Did this help me advance my images in my head, my perspective of what is really going on? So let's try this with another image related to Number of the Stars. Study the image on the next slide, and I want you to tell me, or think about, actually, you can't tell me, you got to think about and tell me, or think about what you notice. Okay, so look at that image. I want you to look at the foreground, the background, all the things that are happening, the details, small little details. Think about what you're seeing. Remember to look at all the different parts. Does this fit with any part of the book, Number the Stars? Did anyone say to themselves, I never pictured how scary things were, or just how dangerous this situation that they're living in is? Think about all these tanks. Look at this tank here. There's one here. There's one way in the back. There's one right here with a soldier standing right in front of it, right there on the corner. Right here in the middle of the city, all these buildings. Think about how dangerous or how scary this might be for you. I also look at this picture and think just how brave Peter, Anne-Marie, Ellen, Kirsty, how brave they really were. This here is an actual image of what it was like back in the 1940s when this was all going on. These were images that children and everyday people would see. Think about how now this image now with the story synthesized now helps you now picture Number the Stars a little bit clearer in the image that the author wants us to see. Okay. If you are reading a book, which I know a lot of my students are reading different historical fiction books, and you're not sure about something, just take a few minutes and Google something that's on your mind, and it might help you see and picture what is happening a little bit clearer in your book. Right? Enjoy your reading and take that time.